Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with another video. Sticking to our very not regular routine here. Most videos we got some coming out on a Sunday. Last video was on a Thursday. Today we're on a Monday. But again, right, we talk about this every video, Gabe. It's hard to get our schedules aligned over the summer, especially, I think.
Yeah, it is tough, but just like
Well,
these picks for me,
yeah, right. We found a time that works.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do for you guys today, we are going to do another startup draft strategy video, and this time with an emphasis on best ball. For those of you who are not familiar, the difference between best ball and a regular fantasy or dynasty league is that best ball you don't set your lineup. So the source that you're using, whether it's Sleeper or ESPN or whatever platform you're playing on, will automatically take your highest scoring players at each position for that week and put them into your starting lineup. So you actually don't have to make lineup decisions. So we're gonna format this similarly to our last startup video. We're gonna go through a brief mock draft with you guys, how we would draft the players, just for the first couple of rounds based on it being a best ball and the other specific scoring settings. And then we're actually just in a best ball startup draft. We're actually still in the draft. It hasn't ended yet. It's another slow draft. But we'll show you guys our draft board there and kind of show you what's been going on and if we were able to pull off our strategies how we wanted to, and basically how the board has fallen in that draft. So admittedly, this draft that we did, the best ball draft, was each of our first best ball drafts. At least for Dynasty. I don't know about you, Gabe, but I've done a couple like underdog best ball drafts last year. But I have very limited experience with best ball, so it was definitely a
Yeah.
challenge for me. I feel like you're in the same boat, right?
Yeah, I think I've only done like one or two underdog drafts. I did like a three-person, like really short one or something like that. I think that's what I wanted done.
Yeah, yeah. Gotta love those three-person drafts,
Yeah.
right? Great value in the 12th round getting I don't know, Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, this was definitely like for both of us, it was our first Dynasty Best Ball draft and Dynasty Best Ball League in general. So it was a bit of a challenge. I can't speak for Gabe, but for me, I did kind of try to do the same strategy that I do in a regular lineup league. So we'll show you guys how that went. But I think, right, without further ado, we can kind of get into the mock draft here. So the scoring
Yeah.
settings, again, we're formatting it just like the league that we just joined, that we're doing the startup for. So it's 5 point per passing touchdowns. Full PPR, it's 1 point tight end premium, so 2.0 PPR for tight ends basically. Start 11 rosters, or start 11 starting lineups, 32-man rosters. No point per carry or anything like that. But I think that's just about everything, right? Those are the main things.
Yeah, and then
Superflex, of course.
there's three running back positions. Is the other thing that's a little different too.
There you go. Yeah. So do you want to run through the entire like starting lineup for people?
Yeah, sure. So it's a start 11. So QB, there's three running backs, three wide receivers, and then one tight end spot, only two flexes, and then one super flex. So it's start 11 total. And then I think how many bench was it, like 19 or something like that?
What's 32 minus 11? 21. So 21 bench spots.
21 bench spots. And then and there's no taxi or IR for this best ball league.
Right. Yeah. And again, the main difference of best ball is you don't have to set your lineup every week. The platform will automatically set your highest scoring lineup. So, we've both definitely done a little bit of research into best ball, even though we're fairly new to it still. But, we've listened to different sources talking about best ball, the difference between best ball and lineup. In best ball, you kind of want those players that can have massive weeks for you. So maybe like the boomer bust guys that might be difficult to trust in a lineup league. Those are the types of guys you might want in a best ball league. So like someone like Mike Williams, someone who could like the weeks that he's scoring 2 points or 3 points because he gets injured halfway through the first quarter, like that doesn't affect you as much as best ball. He's not going to make your lineup. But then when he does have those massive like 30, 25-point games, that is going to be huge for your lineup. And also because of the best ball format, stacking is a little bit more important. So if you can stack a quarterback with a receiver or a tight end or something like that, or even just stacking an offense, you want kind of in best ball, you want those highs and lows a little bit more because you don't have to figure out when they're going to be, right? Whenever the highs hit, those players will be in your lineup, and when the lows hit, they won't be. So it's definitely quite different than lineup. It takes a little bit of an adjustment, but yeah, I'm excited to get into it, man. You ready for it?
I'm super excited. Yeah, I'm super excited about these best ball leagues. I think they sound super fun because, like you said, this is our first league. But I honestly want to kind of get in like a couple more. They seem super fun to me.
Right. Yeah, we'll definitely have to kind of brush up on our best ball skills a little bit. But one
Yeah.
last thing that I didn't mention earlier, so it is a 14-team league instead of 12. So and again, that reflects the league that we joined, the startup that we're in. So it's 14 teams, so it makes it a little bit deeper,
Yeah.
than obviously a regular 12 team. So 14 teams, start 11, pretty deep rosters, right? You got to have pretty good depth to compete in this type of
Mhm.
league. And so for this mock, we've got the same positions that we had in the actual draft. So I'm at the 9 spot, Gabe's at the 12 spot. And I guess without further ado, right, when we get this thing started,
Sure.
why don't you start us off with the 101? I feel like I started last time.
All right, sure. So I'll take Patrick Mahomes still. That's not gonna
Okay.
be any different for the best ball.
Right, yeah, yeah. I don't think he's going anywhere from the 101 in a best ball. All right. Then at the 102, I'm actually going to take Jalen Hurts. Sorry,
Okay.
hold on. Let me figure out my screen here. So, uh, okay, I'm still getting used to the. Oh, okay. So usually I've got Gabe's in control of all the picks, so I got to figure out what I'm doing here. All right, there we
Hey,
go.
there you go.
So I actually I take Jalen Hurts a little bit over Josh Allen. I think they're both in the same tier, but just in general, best ball lineup, I prefer Jalen Hurts a little bit more. I think he has a little bit higher upside
Okay.
and better weapons, in my
I get
opinion.
that too. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, especially with the weapons, and then also like his elbow injury was definitely a little scary at the end of last year.
Okay, then you got him at the 103.
Yeah, I'll take him there.
Right. Yeah. All right, makes sense so far. And again, with it being a 14 team, kind of makes the quarterback, the strength of your quarterback position that much more important.
Mhm.
So definitely I'm going quarterback here at the 104. I think I always struggle between Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. I think they're both very comparable, but I do also give the slight edge to Justin Herbert
Okay.
over Burrow.
Well,
Um, I think they both got very good weapons, but I don't know. I'm excited for Herbert. I think he had a down year last year, but I'm excited for what he can do this year. And of course, we're playing in Dynasty, but I think those guys are very similar.
mhm.
I just think I'm sorry, I think Herbert has a little bit more upside.
Yeah, I get that. And then it makes it easy. I'll just take Burrow after that.
There you go. Then after that, I will go Lamar Jackson. I still think he has
Mhm.
tons of upside. And again, with it being a best ball, like those spike weeks from Lamar are going to be great for your lineup. So I
I
think
like that.
Lamar.
Yeah, I think this is where I think I'm still going to go T-Law, especially because of the 14 team for the quarterbacks. But I think this is, especially in a best ball, I could see you taking Jefferson or Chase over some of these later quarterbacks.
hmm Yeah. Yeah, I could see that too. It's tough, right, with the positional scarcity at every
Hmm.
position eventually kicks in.
Yeah.
Um, okay, well, we're at the 109 here. I know we randomized the draft order, so it shows team 10 above, but this is or I'm sorry, this is the 108.
What
So
do
I'm,
we? Yeah.
oh man, sorry, I'm all over the place tonight. Um, I, I'm gonna go Justin Fields. It's between him and Deshaun Watson, and again, with the best
Okay.
ball, I just think Justin Fields could have higher spike weeks than Deshaun Watson at this point. I do expect a rebound from Deshaun Watson, but I still think Fields
Mhm.
has a higher ceiling, and I'd still take him over the wide receivers here. Don't get me wrong, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, those guys are elite difference makers. But just with the positional scarcity, I feel, especially in a best ball, I feel like I can get better wide receiver depth later on than I can quarterback. So that's why I'd give the edge to Fields for me.
I would take Watson, yeah, for those exact reasons, with the scarcity at the position, and is that I guess you could go AR here, but I'm just gonna go with the solid asset with Watson because we haven't even seen AR play yet, so I don't want to take him before Watson there.
Makes
Because
sense.
plus, I mean, Watson signed this massive deal with the Cleveland Browns. He's going to be starting for next 3 4 years. I think he'll definitely bounce back.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Now, for a lot of people, they've got that elite tier of 9 quarterbacks. Some people will have it up to 10 or 11, depending on how you feel about like guys like Anthony Richardson, Kyler, Dak Prescott, whatever. I tend to agree that it's just kind of these top 9. I think A-Rich, if anybody, can jump into this tier.
Mm.
But see, once we're at this point in the draft, now keep in mind, this is the 10 spot, and we've got 14 teams. So if I was actually picking in this spot, there are, what, 8 picks again before I go. So
Yeah.
I don't want to take your patented line here and say it's really tough, but it is really tough, right? Because it's almost like
Yeah.
how can you pass on Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase here? But then
Hmm.
you've also got the quarterback scarcity. I think there's enough guys in kind of the next 2 tiers of quarterbacks that I'm comfortable with that I'm actually
Right.
going to take a wide receiver here. And I'm gonna go. I don't try to be hot takey, and I'm not doing it on purpose if it comes off that way, but I'm gonna take Jamar Chase. I know I've kind of gone against consensus already in this draft, taking Hurts over Allen, taking Herbert over Burrow. But truly for Dynasty, I think just, Jamar Chase has a little bit more um, security, like in the long run, than Justin Jefferson does. I think that with the quarterback situation primarily, we don't know what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins. There's a good chance that this upcoming season is going to be Kirk's last year in Minnesota, whereas Jamar Chase should be tied to Joe Burrow for at least several more years. So I just think he has a little bit of a higher edge in Dynasty than JJ, but I certainly don't blame anyone for taking Justin Jefferson before him.
Yeah, I get that. And then I think you're kind of making this easier for me. I'm kind of because I think for all these picks you're taking like the more hot takey guy, and then I'm just kind of taking the guy who falls after. I'll take JJ there.
You're welcome, buddy. Listen, this is what we have to do to avoid you saying that the pick is tough too often.
Exactly. Yeah.
No.
I'm gonna have to take some shots.
Yes. So again, now here we're at the 112. This is where I kind of start thinking about tight end because it's the 2.0 tight end premium. One last thing, I guess, again, kind of random here, but we forgot to say it earlier. It is a third round reversal also in this league.
Right.
So keep that in mind. If you're picking at the end of the first, you're also going to be picking earlier in the third round later on. So that can make a difference when you're actually building a team. So now with the top 2 wide receivers gone, I'm pretty much between Anthony Richardson and Kyle Pitts.
Oh, okay.
Because those are the 2 positions I think that have the most scarcity compared to running backs or wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go A-Rich. Again, just sticking to my guns here. When push comes to shove, I just feel like the quarterback position is what I value more than anything else. So I'll go with A-Rich.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think I probably would take an AR there too.
Okay.
And then I'm actually going to take Bijan next.
Ooh. Okay.
Because as you guys will see, kind of in the draft that we actually did, I prioritized the RBs pretty highly. Because I guess what's it?
Because of the start 3 running backs, is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and then also with some of the the best ball strategy that I've heard. Ultimately, that there's kind of a difference because, like I said, we've talked about in our lineup leagues in a few of our videos how we kind of punt the running backs or like any running back on 53, but in a best ball league it's kind of flipped to where you kind of want to prioritize those running backs who are going to get carries because if you get a bunch of those running backs who are farther down like RB 50, they're just going to get you 2 points, they're going to get you zeros, and they aren't helping your team at all. So I wanted to get a lot of the running backs kind of like in the top 24, like the top 30, who are gonna have a big chance of getting me a lot of points. And then and then with the wide receivers, then there's so many wide receivers that you can get like a wide receiver 4 and 5, and they're still gonna have a chance to get a spike week.
Right. No, that does make sense, and that's a very important distinction that people who know best ball a lot better than we do talk about, and we've tried to adapt to that style too, right? Like you don't want to have their RBs who are going to be putting up zeros every week because they don't help you in your lineup. Whereas the wide receivers, because the wide receiver position has so much more depth to it, it kind of makes sense. Like you can have those random, wide receivers who in a typical league would be called, hashtag roster cloggers. Thank you, Scott Connor.
Yeah.
In a best ball, they could be helpful because that random week where they get 2 touchdowns out of nowhere, they'll be in your lineup and you don't have to see it coming. So I get that. And especially with the start 3 running backs, you can't devalue the running backs, or you shouldn't devalue the running backs as much as you and I usually would in a normal, kind of like a lineup league. So after that long-winded response, now if this was an actual draft and I had 2 picks in a row here, I'd be very tempted to go Kyle Pitts and Mark Andrews just to kind of lock up that tight end advantage. Now we're not doing it that way, obviously, since it's just the 2 of us in a mock draft going back and forth. But I am going to go ahead and take Kyle Pitts here.
Okay.
Just for the tight end advantage. And yeah, I think the tight end advantage can't be understated in a 2.0 tight end premium, especially.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, it's interesting because I was excited to make this video because we haven't really talked about best ball at all because me and Paul did the draft together, but we haven't really sat down and talked much best ball, so it'll be interesting to kind of see where we differ here on some of the strategies.
We'll pick apart each other's teams when we get to the one here.
I think I'm gonna go.
It's hard, huh? Are you between like two players? Tell us what you're thinking here. What's got you conflicted?
Yeah, I guess ultimately I'm not sure which direction to go because the quarterback, if like you kind of said before that A Rich, there's kind of a drop off after that. Well, there's a drop off after Watson and then AR.
Hmm.
So there's kind of like another tier here, like a Bryce Young, Dak Prescott, Tua, C.J. Stroud, or Kyler. But then also the running backs, like with CMC, Brees, JT, or Saquon, also look pretty spicy too, and the wide receivers. But I think especially because of the 14 team, I think I'm going to go quarterback here. So I'm actually between Dak and Bryce Young.
Okay.
I think I'm actually going to go Dak. I think he's somebody I've probably been putting a little too far down in the rankings. Personally, I think Dak's kind of underrated by most people.
So Dak and Bryce above Kyler for you?
Yeah, yeah. Especially with Kyler's injury, I wouldn't want to take him unless I was punting. But if I'm competing this year, I don't want to take Kyler at least for my first quarterback.
Sure. Right. Yeah, and see, it's tough, right? Because like technically, we're not actually building a team here. If we were building a team, it'd be much different. So it kind of makes
Right.
these drafts hard, right? You're technically just we're aiming to just choose the next highest value player, highest value position, the way we see it. So I get what you're saying. Um, yeah, see, I'm still not tempted to take a running back. Again, I understand the value that they have in this league, but I'm okay waiting. Like, I don't think a running back would be the next highest value position here. Um, and I honestly don't even think a wide receiver would be. So I'm between Mark Andrews and Kyler. For me, I think
Okay.
Kyler definitely over Bryce Young. And I think I could make an argument for Kyler over Dak Prescott. Again, I think we have to get more information to see when he's going to be back from the injury. If he's going to miss half the season, then no, I would take Dak Prescott over him, even if I was
Mhm.
punting this year. But if he's going to be back, within the first month of the season, then it's maybe a different story. Um, so I guess given Kyler's uncertainty, I'm going to go Mark Andrews here. I think he's
Okay.
very, locked and loaded as the tight end 1 or 2 in Dynasty for at least like the next 3 years, and we tend to play in a 3-year window, except for the running back position. So I think Mark Andrews, the positional value and the positional scarcity, right? Because honestly, I don't know about you, but like the more I do like mock drafts, even like real drafts, it's like I love getting Kyle Pitts or Mark Andrews.
Mhm.
I love getting Travis Kelsey if I'm trying to compete this year. But other
Yeah.
than that, I feel like none of the rest of the tight ends even really excite me. So, they don't get me hot under the collar. So, except for these two guys. So I don't know. I just feel like I
Yeah.
kind of prioritize those two far and away above the rest of the field. Like I said, unless you can get Kelsey if you're trying to compete this year, or maybe stack him with Mahomes or something. But so anyway, that's why I'm kind of locked into the tight end there.
I've been kind of thinking about that too. Yeah, I feel like it's interesting with the tight ends. I think ultimately what I've come to recently is I think you kind of have to go big or go home. Like you said, go with Pitts or Andrews, or you have to kind of just punt and then get some of the like the tight end, get like a Evan Ingram or something like a tight end 12 or 13 or something like that, rather than trying to pay up like for a Goddard or like a Kittle or something like that, like in the middle rounds.
Right. Yeah, I gotcha. All right. So what's your
Um,
you thinking?
I'm gonna go Bryce Young here
Okay. All right.
because
Give me
I
your thoughts.
I had him really close to Dak, so I think I'm gonna keep rolling with the quarterbacks here, especially since it's a 14 team Superflex.
If I didn't take Mark Andrews, would you have taken Andrews over Bryce Young or no?
No, I wouldn't have.
Okay. You so
Yeah,
you would take Bryce Young over Mark Andrews as well.
I would. Yeah,
Okay. Just because of the importance of the QB position.
yeah. I feel like ultimately you can kind of backfill the tight end a little bit more, but I feel like especially with the 14 team, the quarterbacks, if you don't get one of these starters, then you're completely out of luck,
Makes
basically
sense.
in
Oh
this
yeah,
league.
that's a very good point, right? Because at the QB position, you only have 32 starters every week, whereas hypothetically there could be, the tight end 33 for the rankings for that week could, score a touchdown and be in your lineup. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Personally, other than A Rich because he has the
Mhm.
rushing ability, I'm not really loving any of the rookie quarterbacks. Just for this year. Again, obviously this is dynasty, but people have. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here. I'll keep it quick. But like people on other podcasts have talked about this too. How dynasty is really becoming more and more like redraft, where it's almost
Mhm.
like a year-to-year game, especially at the running back position. But honestly, even just as a whole in general. So it's not fully at that point yet, obviously. And I think for you and I, we still kind of try to play in like 2 or 3 year windows. Um, but I just, for me right now, like I feel like between Mark Andrews and Bryce Young, they can both produce this year. But worst case scenario for both of them, if they don't produce, Mark Andrews is going to maintain his value. Whereas I think Bryce Young could maybe falter a little bit if he has a bad rookie season. Even though I think a lot of people kind of expect it from a rookie. But anyway, I don't want to go on a tangent there. But it's just interesting to kind of see where we differ on that.
Yeah, it is interesting.
So with you taking Bryce, that makes my decision a little bit easier. I'm going to take Kyler here.
Okay.
Again, he's one of the trickiest picks or trickiest players in Dynasty to evaluate right now with the injury, but he's also been pretty much an elite producer his whole career so far. So I do think he's being undervalued. Personally, I would take him over Bryce Young and Dak Prescott, and it'd be a toss-up between him and Mark Andrews. But obviously, I took Mark Andrews. But anyway, again the positional scarcity of the quarterback position. I don't think I would want to let Kyler drop any further.
Yeah, I think after Kyler, I think this is where I'd probably wait. I think I'd probably wait on Tua for like a half a round or a round or so before I take another QB here.
Okay.
All right. I think ultimately it's hard because after these picks, we haven't picked the third wide receiver off the board yet. So I'm kind of liking the look of CD and AJ Brown, but also with the running back position, like I talked about before, it's tempting to take Brees or CMC. I'm gonna take CMC here. Oop.
Okay.
Clicking the wrong thing.
I'm excited. All right. What's the rationale for CMC?
Yeah, I guess the rationale behind it that I guess ultimately with the best ball strategy, I guess in my mind I'm kind of honing in on the running backs and trying to get these elite RBs, especially kind of like the top 5 or 6 guys like Bijan, CMC, Brees, JT, or Saquon. Because I think then the RBs fall off really fast, and especially especially since you have to start 3 RBs in this league and there's 14 teams. I think some of the teams that get those elite options are going to be really healthy at the RB position, and then you can still backfill those wide receivers.
Sure, makes sense. So I'm going to go with the third wide receiver off the board then, and actually because it's a best ball, because I think A.J. Brown's ceiling is a little higher than C.D. Lamb's, so I'm going to take A.J. Brown here. Again, it's a toss-up. I wouldn't blame anyone for taking C.D. over A.J. Brown. I think in most drafts, C.D. does go first, but I think A.J. Brown's ceiling is a little bit higher. Like I think his spike weeks are going to be A, more frequent, and B, bigger than C.D. Lamb's would be. So that's just the way I kind of forecast it.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to take C.D. here. I think I'd probably take C.D. and A.J. Brown over Brees next. Mainly because of his injury. Yeah.
I was going to say, now just looking back, it is kind of interesting you took McCaffrey as the second running back off the board over, like, Brees Hall or JT. That's a little bit of a hot take.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I guess in best ball it was. I feel like in a lineup league, I don't think I'd take CMC that high at all. I think I'd probably lean Brees.
Yeah, okay. See, it's tough because... I know, here I am saying it's tough again. I told you not to say it's tough, but don't worry, I'll take my shots after we're done.
All right.
It is hard because, like, and this is where I struggle in the actual draft too, where, like, I always kind of punt the running backs. I devalue them, and I kind of did that in our actual draft too, but it's like, you can only do it to a certain point in best ball, especially when you have to start 3 guys. Yeah. So, it's hard here. It's just, because the next running back off the board would be Brees Hall, and I love the dude. I think he's going to have a great season. I think it's going to get off to a slow start. I can't take Brees Hall over a guy like Garrett Wilson. So I am going to go Garrett Wilson here. I just think the positional value, I think, the wide receivers are so propped up in today's game compared to running backs. I just don't think I can take Garrett Wilson's teammate with a torn ACL.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Back position, obviously. So yeah, that's what I would go there.
I think this is where I started thinking about Kelsey potentially at the tight end position.
Yeah.
But I think here's where I will go Brees.
Okay.
After some of these wide receivers.
Yeah. All right. And that makes my decision easy. As you can see, I am sticking to my guns here, hating on the running backs. I'm going to take Tyreek Hill. Right. I think he gets forgotten in these drafts sometimes, but especially in the best ball. I mean, I think we all know, like, Tyreek Hill is the definition of, like, I don't know why I said Mike Williams as the example earlier. Like, Tyreek Hill, maybe because he's higher up, so people want him in every league, but, like, Tyreek Hill is the epitome of best ball. Like, his spike weeks are going to be huge. He'll be making people's lineups most of the time, almost every week. So, give me Tyreek there.
This is where it's tough. I guess in the best ball league I've been fairly high on JT, but also I've been questioning it a little bit more recently, based on the fact that their quarterback will probably be Anthony Richardson for most of the year, unless Gardner Minshew starts a little bit. But that offense could be a little wonky for the most part, which could affect him a little bit. But I guess we've also seen him kind of thrive in the offense, even though it hasn't been spectacular besides him. But Amon-Ra sitting there, even Waddle. I think I'm going to go Waddle here. I think I would take him over Amon-Ra. I think his spike weeks are going to be a little better.
Okay, I got you. Well then, at this point, I cannot pass up Travis Kelce. He is a warp difference maker, wins above replacement difference maker. And I think this is, about the place I'd feel comfortable taking him. I don't think I'd want him to fall any further.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was definitely considering him there. I think here I'm between JT and Amon-Ra. I think I'm going to go Amon-Ra here.
Okay. Interesting. See, I kind of lower Amon-Ra on my ranks a little bit because I think he's more of like a possession PPR receiver, which I feel like would not be as valuable in best ball. But it's interesting. I was debating him too earlier. Okay, well, I'm not going tight end here. I'm still not going. See, again, it's different if I was actually building a team here. I would probably take a running back with one of these picks on the turn, but I am not. So I'm going to lean into the QB positional scarcity again, and I'm going to take Danny Dimes.
Okay.
Yeah, again, I think he showed us last year that he can be a competent, NFL quarterback. And at that point, I'd rather do that than roll the dice with an unknown guy like C.J. Stroud. Because it was really between those two for me. And as much as I love Tua, just all the concerns with him, I would not take him that early. So it's pretty easily Danny Dimes for me there, at least if I was going to go quarterback. So now with a third round reversal, obviously we're back to the 301 here on the other side of the board. So what are you thinking?
Because I was talking about JT, but I'm actually kind of leaning. I think I'm going to take Saquon over him, over JT.
That's what I was thinking. I would take if it's Spike Week. Yeah. Okay, makes sense. So you're going Saquon there. Let's see. What do I want to do? I think I'm going to go back to the wide receiver well. I will take Chris Olave. Yeah, I think he's other than the quarterbacks, he's what's gold in Dynasty right now, which is young, high-producing wide receivers. So I also think that he and Garrett Wilson, when you look at the numbers, they produced pretty similarly last season, but Garrett Wilson is being propped up significantly higher than Chris Olave, I would say. So I think he's a good value here.
I like Olave, yeah, especially because I think he'll be somebody where he'll probably kind of spike here and there. Because then maybe some weeks will only have like 8 or 9, like if Michael Thomas pops off or something like that, or they have a down game, then I'll definitely have those like 25-point games, I think.
Right, yeah.
And then, like you said, I think he'll just hold a lot of dynasty value compared to some of these guys, like Tyreek or something like that, or somebody like Saquon who will probably drop off after this year.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. It's really hard to gauge where you should take these quarterbacks, especially in a 14 team.
Yeah, right. I mean, it'd be different for actually building teams here, but it's just like, how do you value them compared to the other position players?
I think here I will take. I don't know if I want Tua or C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Tua next.
Okay.
Keep going with the quarterbacks. Because I think there's kind of a big drop-off after C.J. Stroud and Tua.
Yeah. I agree. And actually, I was debating those two as well. So since you took Tua, I'm going to take C.J. Stroud. So I think that decision easy. I do think there's a drop-off after this, too. I think Kirk Cousins can kind of sneak his way into, like, this same tier, at least for me.
Yeah.
But I still have C.J. Stroud a decent way, like above Kirk Cousins in my own personal prognostications. So I'd take him there.
Yes, I think I'm going to go JT here.
Okay.
He was an absolute beast a few years ago. I'd be happy to get him in 305 here.
He was.
He was.
All right. See, now at this point, I don't really care about youth. Again, it's a mock draft. I'm trying to take the guys who have the most value. So I'm debating some of the old, crusty wide receivers versus some of the older, crusty running backs. See, it's tough. Okay. I'm maybe going to go against what I usually would do here, but I'm actually going to go with the running back. I'm going to take Austin Eckler.
Okay.
I still think he has another solid, I think this season he can be pretty good for fantasy, a warp difference maker like he was last year. I'm not going to try to forecast beyond one season, especially for a running back, but I think this year he can be really solid, and maybe one more year after that too. So I think he could be a difference maker, especially in the best ball, start 3 running back type of league.
This is where the line with some of the running backs and wide receivers gets a little murky. I think I lean the wide receiver though. I don't think I really want to take Gibbs yet. Also, somebody like Hawkinson, I think I'd want to wait a little bit. Like I said, kind of with the go big or go home thing. I like Hawkinson a lot, but I think there's definitely a big drop off after the top 3 guys with Pitts, Andrews, and Kelsey. I think I would prefer to take some of these other positions.
I agree.
Since you have to start more of them. I think we're going to go with Diggs.
Okay. Well, I was debating Diggs and Cooper Kupp, so I'm gonna go with Cooper Kupp. Give us those old productive wide receivers.
So then ultimately, are you higher on some of these older vets in a best ball format compared to lineup?
Well, I feel like in either, whether it's lineup or best ball, I mean, it depends on my team build, right? Most drafts I've been doing recently, I've been going more for the productive struggle, so I'm not as interested in those, older but still high producing vets. But if I'm trying to compete in year 1, then yeah, totally. And in fact, I think they should be valued as higher than some of the younger guys who are going ahead of them.
Right. Okay.
There's those 4. It's Tyreek, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, and Devontae Adams. And I think on Keep Trade Cut, they're all back to back in their rankings. But I think they, yes, they don't have the same shine on them as a Garrett Wilson or an Olave or an Amon-Ra or Jalen Waddle, but they're going to produce, unless they get injured, they should produce at a very high level in 2023 and potentially even a year after that too. And again, since I don't play Dynasty beyond a 3-year window at the most, I tend to value just production over youth. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess I'm curious then, kind of going back to some of the tight ends, because I was curious of why you took Pitts over Andrews.
Well, yeah, you're putting me on the spot here, huh?
I know.
Because I believe in Pitts that he will hit his ceiling, and I think that ceiling will be higher than Mark Andrews. And because he's significantly younger, I think his dynasty value will also be significantly higher than Mark Andrews' dynasty value has ever been. I think Mark Andrews had his peak a couple years ago. I think it was the year Lamar got the MVP. I think that was kind of his peak in dynasty, but obviously he's maintained as a top 2 or 3 tight end since then. But I think Pitts will hit his ceiling, and I think it'll be higher than Mark Andrews' ceiling has been. So that's why I would still value him more than, over Andrews in a dynasty.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Now, if this was redraft, I would not be playing around. I would take Mark Andrews. But again, especially in dynasty, you're drafting for talent. You're not drafting for current situation. And the current situation would say that you should take Mark Andrews over Kyle Pitts, but the talent and the youth would suggest that I lean Kyle Pitts in a dynasty league.
All right, cool. Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if this was an established league and I was a contender this year, I would probably trade Kyle Pitts for Mark Andrews and try to get a little something on top.
Yeah.
But if I'm not, if I have maybe more of a longer window to compete, I prefer Pitts.
All right, sweet.
So, all right, my long-winded rant there gave you a couple minutes to think about your pick. So, you're picking here?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go back to the running backs and wide receivers. This is where it's hard for me, like I said, to distinguish, since that's a start 3 running back, and I think in best ball you want to prioritize the RBs a little bit more. It's tough to gauge because I think ultimately I would value T. Higgins over somebody like Gibbs, but I think based on a format, that's where you have to kind of think a little bit, which one do you really want, which one do you prefer. I think I'm going to go with Gibbs, kind of like a Swift-esque type of player, and he got drafted extremely high by the Lions. I think they're gonna have a really good offense this year. I think especially in a best ball league, I think he's a little bit of a safer pick. Where if he has some down weeks, then somebody else can shoot up in your lineup and kind of cover him a little bit.
Yeah, I was kind of debating Gibbs with my next pick there, but obviously you sniped him from me. Um,
Who are you thinking next?
so, not a running back, not a quarterback, so I'm down to wide receiver or tight end. Um, Again, I do think it is kind of a flat tier here of the tight ends with Hawkinson, Kittle, Goddard, Kincaid, all those dudes. I also think it's kind of a flat tier with the wide receivers too, though.
Yeah.
Um, but again, I'm leaning wide receiver. I'm going to go with a wide receiver here because we have to start more of them, and I think they have more value in a dynasty league, even in a 2.0 tight end premium. Which, to be fair, I am getting close to like taking the next tight end here. I think around this range is when I'm really thinking about it. In a real draft, I bet Hawkinson would already be gone by this point. Um, but in terms of the wide receivers, I'm debating a couple guys here. I think I'm between T. Higgins and Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
And I know they're like very similar in people's rankings for many people.
Mhm.
I guess at the end of the day, I lean towards the better offense, but that's also a hard question because they both have very good offenses. So I guess at the end of the day, I'll lean with the one that has a quarterback that passes the ball more, and that would be T. Higgins. With Joe Burrow compared to Jalen Hurts, obviously he can take off and run more. But again, I think they're very comparable picks, and it's kind of a flat range here. Like I don't think there's one guy that's truly above another. People have their own opinions, but for me, it's kind of a flat tier there.
Yeah, I think that makes it easy. I'm gonna take Devonta Smith there
Okay.
for those exact reasons.
Good. Now I know I was talking about those four older wide receivers earlier that can still produce in Tyreek Hill, Diggs, Kupp, and Devontae Adams. I do have Devontae Adams a little bit lower than the rest of the group, just with I think a more shaky QB situation and just team atmosphere, and he's also apparently unhappy with the team. So, like, I'm not necessarily valuing him over some of these next like younger wide receivers like a JSN or a Drake London. Um, hmm. Hmm. I guess you know what I'm gonna go Hawkinson here.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah, I just with the tight end like even if it is a flat tier, I just think he can probably outproduce some of the wide receivers and the running backs in this range. So I'll take Hawkinson.
Just because of the format, yeah.
Yeah.
I think these are a little bit more of a flat tiers. I think after Gibbs and Eckler and JT, there's kind of a drop off at running back, where I think some of these guys have question marks. Where they're not so bulletproof, so to speak. And like you said, I think it's kind of more of a flat tier with the wide receivers. I think I'm gonna go Kirk Cousins here.
Ooh, okay, that's what I'm thinking from my pick.
Okay.
Sniped me again. No, that's okay. That makes sense. Again, with the QB positional scarcity, especially with it being 14 teams, I get that pick. And then to finish us out in the third round here, I am going to go with Drake London. I think he did have a very promising rookie season, and I know there's a lot of mouths to feed on that offense, and not necessarily a competent QB at the helm. Plus, it's not like they're a team that passes very much. But being a young wide receiver, which is what people very much covet in Dynasty, I think he'll maintain his value, even if he maybe has a lackluster season in 2023. Now, do you want to call it a wrap, or did you want to do a fourth round?
Want to just crank it out quick?
Yeah, sure.
You can not
sure.
really speak on the picks much, but just kind of crank it out, see what comes up.
Let's make it rapid fire then.
All right, let's do it. I'm gonna take Josh Jacobs.
Okay. And that means I am going to take. I don't usually do this, but I'm going to take Nick Chubb.
Okay.
Good offense, lots of opportunity.
That feels kind of gross, though.
It does.
Take Jason.
Jason, okay, I was thinking about him there. Another pick that feels kind of gross, but again, I gotta go with what's in demand here and what's hard to find, and that means I'm taking a quarterback, and that is Kenny Pickett. I really do not like Kenny Pickett. It feels kind of gross, but he's a guy that is I think, locked into job security and on a competent organization with good weapons around him. So.
I'm between some of these other quarterbacks now as well. I'm gonna go ETN here.
Okay. And then I will rapid fire take my boy George Kittle here. Another guy whose spike weeks are massive. So I like him the best.
Yeah, he gets like 10 points or he gets 35.
He's either out for the game with an injury or he's getting 2 touchdown passes from Brock Purdy.
Yeah, exactly. I think with the quarterback scarcity, I'm gonna go Jared Goff here. I know it's a little weird.
Gross. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. I will go DK Metcalf. Not really an inspiring pick for me, but solid wide receiver, should produce at a decent level. And again, as we said in the previous, startup draft strategy, like this is why around this range I either like to trade these picks to get up into the first round to get a second first-round pick to get another elite quarterback, or if I have these picks, I like to trade down and tack on a 24 first because all these players, or most of them, in my opinion, are at a pretty flat tier, and I don't want to be the one who's gonna, come in and think that I know how to pick the right players out of this bunch. So I'd rather not play and get the insulation and security of added first-round picks or added elite quarterbacks. Anyway, I'm sorry, I digress. Make your pick.
Oh, that's all right. It's good to explain it. I'm gonna go back to some of the RBs here. I'm gonna go Najee. I don't love Najee and his inefficient looking ass, but I think he's gonna get a huge workload this year.
That's fair.
And that's what you want in best ball. Somebody who's out there on the field getting carries.
Actually, I feel like I disagree. I was just about to say I feel like, especially, I think in a lineup league too, but especially in a best ball, you want guys who are efficient, not guys who get opportunity. Opportunity, yes, like volume is kind of the basis for it, but like, what happens when that volume's not there, or if it's not there? Like, that's why I want the guys who are historically efficient, because I don't need them to get tons of volume. I just need them to be efficient with the touches they do get, maybe get a touchdown or two, and then they can still crack my lineup. So I think we maybe see that a little bit differently, but I respect the pick. Let's see. Oh man, Devontae Adams would feel a little gross here. I'm gonna go Ramondre Stevenson. It's between him and Kenneth Walker, and I think Ramondre is more efficient and gets more opportunities in the air, and has less competition, unless of course the Patriots signed Dalvin Cook, but that as of now has not happened. So give me Ramondre.
It falls off fast here in the 4th round, dude.
It does.
It's a little weird, but I'm gonna go Geno Smith, the quarterbacks.
Okay.
He has great weapons.
He does. Now this, I feel stupid making this pick, and I may look dumb if I made this in a real draft, but give me Trey Lance. I did also take him in the startup that we did. We'll get to that briefly, but again, this is best ball. We're shooting for upside. If Trey Lance has a starting job, whether it's in San Fran or elsewhere, with his rushing capability, and he has high draft capital, I know it hasn't amounted to practically anything so far, and I totally understand all the doubts and the reasons to not like Trey Lance, but he is kind of the ultimate wild card, and so I'm willing to take a gamble on him here.
Okay.
Near the 4th round.
I would disagree on that pick, I guess, ultimately. I guess like, in the best ball format, I think there's a very good chance he's going to put up a bunch of zeros for you this year.
Okay, so basically you're assuming that he's going to be like the backup to Brock Purdy?
Right. Yeah, I guess either Brock or Sam Darnold, just because it just seems like the 49ers are not really in favor of him currently.
I see. I get that, and those concerns are legitimate, and they concern me as well. I just feel like, I don't know. Because at the end of the day, I truly don't know what San Fran is going to do. I'm kind of willing to take that risk, and if I get pie on my face, then so be it. But I feel like I'm kind of willing to take that risk here. But I don't fault anyone for not wanting to do that.
Yeah.
All right, what are you thinking with your last pick of the mock?
He has huge upside, though. Yeah, I mean, he could be a top 5 quarterback if he gets a chance.
Starting job, yeah.
Yeah. Here, I've been kind of punting him a little bit, but I think I'm going to go Ken Walk here. I think he's still a very good prospect. I know some people are kind of shoving him down because of Charbonnet, but he got a load of touchdowns last year and a ton of work. I think he's going to do a pretty good job again this year.
Sure. All right, and again, it's not a super inspiring pick, but I am going to take Devontae Adams.
Okay.
He's old. He's dissatisfied with his team, but I think he can still produce this year as long as he's playing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that'll round us out here at the end of the fourth round. I think let's call the mock there because we've been going for a while. Um, but I at the end of the day, I don't think it looks too much different from the mock draft we did from our lineup startup dynasty draft that we did a couple weeks ago. But again, we kind of talked through it a little bit, let you guys know why we think certain guys may be more valued in this format or less valued. Also, with the starting requirements of 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, that's a little deeper than a lot of other leagues. So, yeah, nice job, man. I'm glad we
Yeah.
got through that pretty well.
That was fun. Yeah, yeah, and then I guess I have one question too. I guess if this was a 12 team, would you still take the quarterbacks pretty highly, like we are in this mock, or would you kind of shove them down a little bit?
For the most part, I would still take them as highly, but like, let's say we're in the first round and I'm at like the 8 or the 9 spot, and I'm debating Justin Fields or Deshaun Watson. I feel like especially if I'm at like the 9 spot, and it's only one of those top 9 dudes left. I may be willing to like take a Chase or a Jefferson above like that ninth best quarterback, or at least ninth ranked quarterback, and
Right.
kind of roll the dice on getting solid guys in the second and third round, maybe like a Kyler or a Dak or a Bryce Young or a Tua, something like that.
Mhm.
I think because it's 14 team, like it makes I already value the quarterbacks very highly, and it kind of kicks that into hyperdrive with it being
Mhm.
a 14 team.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and then as you can see, I guess I can jump over to the actual draft now.
Sure.
People very heavily valued the quarterbacks in this draft.
Yes, yes, they did. Yeah, I was one of them.
Yeah, so Paul's over here at the 9 spot, and I'm over here at the 12 spot.
Yeah. Um, yeah, this was again same format, same settings as what we just did for our mock draft, but you can see the first 9 picks are all quarterbacks. Now, I guess I'll just start briefly with my strategy. Now, again, this was my first Dynasty Best Ball draft and league, so
Mhm.
we'll see how it works out. But I kind of tried to stick to the same strategy that I do in other typical lineup leagues, where I try to trade up into the first round to get a second elite quarterback, and then try to trade back later on in the draft to accumulate 24 firsts. I was able to do that, so I ended up trading my second, third, and fourth round picks for another team's first rounder, and then I also got, what was it? I can't remember his seventh and eighth round picks as well. So it was a 2, 3, 4 for a 1, 7, and 8. Um, Fair value, I would say. I've been able to. I think this is a very sharp league too. So like in the last startup we did, I was able to do instead of 2, 3, 4, I was able to do my second, third, and fifth for a first, sixth, and eighth instead of seventh and eighth, something like that. So this is a sharp league. I was happy with the value. So with the Derby, we both kind of got screwed by the Derby. I think I was like
Yeah.
third to last to pick my spot, and you were the last or
I
second to
was
last.
last, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I got stuck
So
with 12.
yeah, it didn't do us any favors.
Mm.
So when I was on the board, I don't entirely remember what options were available. I think it was kind of like those random towards the end of the first round, but not like at the turn or the
Mhm.
9 spot. And I figured I'd go with 9 because that would guarantee me one of the 9 elite quarterbacks. I was able to make that trade for the 105. So at the 105, I took Justin Herbert. I was very excited about that. I love Herbie, and I don't have him in any leagues, so I was happy to get my first Herbert share.
Mhm.
And then at the 109, I did not expect it to be all quarterbacks through the top 8 picks, so I did not think that I'd be staring at
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. And I'll be honest, as soon as I picked Deshaun Watson, but even as soon
Mhm.
as I made the pick, I kind of had some buyer's remorse. Like it did not feel good to take Deshaun Watson over Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. But just again, given the positional scarcity, and I wanted to stick to my guns, and at the end of the day, I think the quarterbacks are the hardest thing to come by, and
Mhm.
especially in a best ball, given that I can have like scrubs, jag wide receivers hit my lineups just because they catch a touchdown one random week. I opted to kind of push the wide receivers down and lock myself into those 2 quarterbacks. Also, the reason I made that trade and gave up so much in the first place was to get 2 elite quarterbacks. So I would have kind of felt like an idiot if I did that and I didn't even get a second elite QB. Not that there's anything wrong with JJ or Jamar Chase, but anyway, so I did that. I won't talk too much longer here, but then I ended up trading. So my next pick, so I traded my 2, 3, and 4, and then I ended up trading my fifth round pick for a ninth and a 24 first. So that fifth round pick was J.K. Dobbins. And then that 9th round pick that I got was Dalvin Cook, and I also got the 24 first. So basically, I traded J.K. Dobbins for Dalvin Cook and a 24 first. Obviously, I didn't know that's how it would shake out when I made that trade originally, but I will say in hindsight, I'm pretty happy with that. Obviously, we don't know where Dalvin Cook's going to land yet, but I think it's certainly within the realm of possibility that he can score similarly to J.K. Dobbins this year, and then also tagging on that 24 first. I was not able to do any other trade backs. In fact, some people in the group chat were roasting the other guy that made that trade with me, telling him that was, he basically got bent over in that trade. I didn't agree with it at the time necessarily, but definitely looking at how the picks shook out, I would definitely prefer my side of the trade than the other guys. But so I was able to stick to that strategy a little bit. Otherwise, you can see I really prioritized the quarterbacks. My first 3 picks were quarterbacks: Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, and then in the 6th round, I took Trey Lance. Again, we already spoke in the mock how it's kind of a risky pick, but I kind of wanted to ensure my QB advantage over the rest of the league as much as possible. And again, Trey Lance is certainly a wild card. Might not end up being an advantage to my team at all to have him, but I just wanted to kind of lock in another guy that if he does start, could be a top 5 quarterback. And really quickly, I will say there was one other team that traded up into the 1st round to get 2 elite QBs. This trade happened after my trade. It's M Cup. So this trade happened after my trade. Now, of course, he gave up less to get into the draft, and he got higher picks too. But anyway, whatever. I digress. He ended up getting Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence. So that's probably one of the few QB rooms that is probably up there with mine as one of the best. Not trying to brag about it, but I'm just saying people who invested more into the QB position. And then as you can see after that, I went with a couple young wide receivers: Treylon Burks, Zay Flowers, Marvin Mims, because I like the high upside in the best ball. Josh Palmer way later on. I took him because not that he's inspiring, but he's a stack with Justin Herbert. I much would have preferred to get Mike Williams or QJ stack with Herbert, but just wasn't able to get it. Those guys went earlier. And I did prioritize some of the tight ends in this league. When I was drafting too, I was able to get Njoku and Evan Ingram. Not like the elite difference makers. I was actually had my eye on Dallas Goedert in this draft, but of course, our resident Packer fan stole him from me, so I was not able to get him. By resident Packer fan, I mean you, Gabe, in case you forgot you took Dallas Goedert.
Oh, I did take. I didn't even realize I took him. I completely forgot.
Dirt. And then last thing I'll say about my team, if you could highlight again. I know I'm kind of rambling here, but I did prioritize running backs a little bit more in this draft than I usually do. So as you can see, I took Gibby there in the the 8th round. Took Dalvin next round, and then Rashad Penny again. As the draft has kind of gone on here, I've really just been trying to shoot my shot with high upside guys. So Rashad Penny, Jerick McKinnon, and CEH. I don't know who's going to catch the touchdowns in Kansas City, but I know someone's going to. So I like getting them. Kareem Hunt's kind of a wild card, but I think could slot into a starting role or close to it whenever he signs somewhere. Raheem Mostert, Ronald Jones, similar ideas there. So it's a deep league and it's a lot of sharp drafters. So I definitely, also with it being my first best ball draft, I don't feel as great about this team as I do about some of my other startups that I've done this summer, or this off season. But again, that's kind of how my team's looking so far. We're in the 23rd round right now, so we still got about 9 more rounds to go. My last pick was Andy Dalton. That's pretty sexy. So that's how my squad's looking so far. Do you want to go into detail about your team a little bit?
Yeah, sure. And then also, I actually like that you got Jerick McKinnon and CEH. I actually like that you got both those guys because I feel like, and you got MVS actually. So I feel like one of those guys are going to get you some touchdowns pretty much every game.
Right. Well, yeah, and especially in best ball, right? You want pieces of good offenses because you don't know who's going to hit when necessarily, especially in a team like KC. Other than Kelsey, everything else is kind of up in the air. But yeah, it's nice to have some of those guys so that when they do get their spike weeks, they're in your lineup. So, all right, show us your beauty of a roster right there.
Yeah, because I guess the weirdest thing is that I didn't make any trades. So as you can see, I just go straight down. I didn't make a single trade in this draft.
Which is rare for you.
Yeah, it is. I guess ultimately since I got stuck with the 12 spot, I didn't get to choose in the Derby. I just got stuck with the 12. I think I kind of decided to just pick my spots and just pick my guys at the spots that come to me. So then, as you can see, I went pretty RB heavy, as I was kind of talking about in the mock. So I actually took Bijan at the 112. Since the next quarterback on the board was Anthony Richardson, but I guess I didn't really have the balls to take him there. since ultimately I wanted to compete this year, so I feel like AR is going to be a little risky, and I feel like drafting AR this high, you're kind of drafting him at his ceiling. He can ultimately probably get a little higher. I mean, he could be like a top 3 quarterback or something like that, but I feel like at the 201 or something like that, you're taking him really high, where I feel like I think some people have gone a little too overboard on him. I think we're kind of forgetting that there's probably a pretty good chance that he could completely bust this year. And also that if he kind of does mediocre this year, then his value is most likely going to fall. So I feel like he would have to absolutely smash this year in order to raise in value. So then I took Bijan here, and then I lucked into Bryce Young here at the 203. So then
make a quick point just to put your process to the test for a second. Okay. Couldn't you argue that you're also taking Bijan at his ceiling there?
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
And I feel like at the end of the day, let's say they both kind of bust or just have mediocre years. Don't you feel like the quarterback would maintain more value than the running back, or you disagree, like in this specific scenario?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. I guess I ultimately just I guess in my head I was going with the RB approach. But yeah, I guess you're right, where I feel like ultimately, if they both busted, then I feel like AR would probably hold more value. But I feel like if Bijan doesn't have some smash year, I feel like it's going to be harder for him to lose value, ultimately. I feel like he has a higher chance of success.
That's fair.
As well.
Well, and regardless, right, at the end of the day, you said, like, you're trying to compete with this team this year, so probably a running back in year one gives you a better chance than the quarterback in year one to, like, try and hopefully smash this year. So I understand that. I just wanted to kind of put your process to the test a little bit there.
Yeah, I actually just thought of that. Because in the mock draft, I took Dak over Bryce Young, so it was interesting. I think ultimately my thoughts on that during the draft is why I took Bryce Young over Dak was because I took Bijan, so I had a little bit of a younger team, so I just went with Bryce there. I mean, Dak will definitely outscore Bryce Young this year, most likely. But I guess I feel like Bryce Young has more dynasty value.
Sure. Yeah, I gotcha.
So, and then ultimately I was kind of going with more of a hybrid approach. I was going with like a young team that can also compete.
Makes sense.
So then my next 3 picks, I took RBs. So I took Saquon at the 303. I took Stevenson at the 412, and I took Pollard at the 503. So I went heavy RBs here to help fill up my RB room. Because like I was talking about in the mock draft, I really wanted to get some of those top like 20 RBs, since those are the guys that are going to get you tons of points and get you tons of carries and opportunities and touchdowns most likely, and they're going to be huge boom guys for you. But then ultimately, I mean, as you can see on the draft board, if you've been kind of scanning around, the quarterbacks went really heavy early on. And there's this one guy, he actually took 6 quarterbacks as his first picks. He actually traded one away just today. So he actually only has 5 of them now first.
Only 5.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? He took Mahomes, Stroud, Cousins, Geno, Carr, and then Purdy. It's 6 in a row. So he's doing a huge QB horde there, which is really interesting.
Yeah, definitely a bold strategy. We'll see. We'll see how that works out for him.
So then ultimately I kind of got stuck with some of the back-end quarterbacks. So I took Howell then at the 612 after Stafford, Lance, and Ritter went. Because then the next guy was Levis or Jimmy G or Tannehill. I feel a little better about Howell. I feel like he has some more upside and a little younger. And he has some great weapons on the Commanders. Then next I took Goddard. I stole him away from you there. I thought the tight end was a pretty good value there. I wanted to, because ultimately I also went into this draft trying to get some middle tight ends. I kind of wanted to get like a few of like the top 12, top 15 tight ends. I didn't want to go for like the huge hitters, because I probably would have, I mean, as you could see, Andrews went at the 208, Pitts went at the 212, and then Kelsey actually went at the 114. So I didn't even. So I would have had to take Andrews or Pitts at the 203. So then ultimately I didn't want to take Hawkinson yet or some of those other guys. So I waited a little bit and took Goddard at the 703. And then I kind of hit some vet wide receivers with Keenan Allen and DeAndre Hopkins. So kind of some huge heavy hitters, since I kind of punted the the wide receiver position early. So I kind of tried to make up for that with some vets since I am trying to compete, like I said. So I was okay with kind of getting some older veterans who I think are still going to score a ton of points for me and have some huge upside weeks. And then kind of going along with the tight ends, and as you can see, I also got Dulcich and Everett in the next couple of rounds. So then I have a couple of good tight ends I can flex as well.
You also stole Everett from me too. I was hoping to get him
Oh, I
to
did.
Herbert, and you took him like the round before.
Yeah, I think here I was gunning for Fant, and he went 2 picks before Everett.
Okay,
That's
so we
what I
both
wanted.
got broken a little bit.
Yeah.
That's okay. At least I got Njoku on my team, so I stacked him with Deshaun Watson. I was really trying to get some stack going. Anyway, I'm sorry. Carry on.
I do like that, and you got him at the 802 is pretty late.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Good value for him.
Oh, and then I guess the next pick was Baker as well after Dulcich, so that also feels a little gross. Then ultimately, I guess my strategy there was since it's a best ball format, ultimately a lot of these guys who are farther back but are still starting actually can give you big value. Because once you kind of drop off into the non-quarterback starters, then those guys can be putting you up. They can be giving you 0 points, and they're just going to be sitting on your bench. So even the back end starters are still pretty valuable in the best ball format, which is ultimately why I'm actually super excited about best ball. I feel like it makes a lot of the back end guys a little more viable. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like that's what's super exciting about best ball to me is a lot of these middle guys can actually give you really big value, and I feel like you can kind of pick players a little more rather than a lineup league, because a lot of these back end guys like Isaiah Hodgins or DJ Chark, a lot of these guys are probably not even starting in a lineup league. So I feel like that's what's cool about a best ball is you can actually select these guys, and most likely, and if you roster construct correctly, then they're actually going to be jumping into your lineup, which I think is really cool.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. We talk a lot about roster construction too, and a lot of ideas from Scott Connor and the Dynasty Trades in 5 guys, and also which ironically this league formed from the Dynasty Trades in 5 community.
Yeah.
So that's I think why there's a lot of sharp drafters and a lot of people who are trying to do the same things too during the draft, which made it a little bit trickier. But yeah, there are definitely some nuances to best ball that I feel like I'm still learning. I definitely have a long way to go, but I want to get more into it too, like you were saying.
Yeah, it's exciting to me. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. So, all right, are you done going over your team, or was there more you wanted to say?
Yeah, so I guess ultimately, I guess I'll just go over some of the last few picks. So I just tried to sprinkle in some wide receivers, and then some other quarterbacks, especially since I didn't get really any of the elite quarterbacks. I got Bryce Young, but then I got Howell and Mayfield, which feels super gross. but then ultimately, at least they should be starting day one.
Zach Wilson.
Yeah, Zach. Yeah, he feels really gross. But ultimately, back here, I just had to at least. I think I had to kind of make up for it, where I had to at least give myself a little bit of a chance, where I can see a path for Zach Wilson at least, where maybe he kind of learns behind Rodgers. Maybe he can start for the Jets in a year or two after Rodgers moves on, or he gets traded somewhere else. And then also Heineke as well. I think I was trying to go for some of those backup guys who I could see starting later in the year. So I think somebody like Heineke, I think Ritter is definitely going to start day one, but I think Heineke is one of the better backups. I think especially for a best ball league, because I could see if Ritter kind of starts off shakily, then Heineke could jump in as a veteran, and then he has some great weapons like Pitts and London. So I think he can do a pretty solid job. And I got him in the 21st round, so that's somebody I'll take a shot on there.
Yeah, that was the third guy that you stole from me. I was hoping to get Heineke in the next round, and yeah. I'm not gonna lie, man. There were 3 occurrences during this draft. Those were the 3 where I was super pissed at you for taking a player I wanted. But that's just life, right? That's the game we play.
It happens.
Yes. All right. Well, so I guess coming out of the draft, how do you feel about? Or well, we're not quite done with the draft yet, but how do you feel about your squad?
I think ultimately it feels a little weird. I think especially from a lineup lens, which me and you are both pretty used to. I think I think you kind of alluded to it as well. I think, like you said, your team doesn't look as kind of sexy compared to your other startup drafts. So I think the best ball league makes your team look a little bit different, and you kind of build a little bit of a different way. So I feel like that's what's fun about best ball. But ultimately, I'm pretty happy with it. I feel like I executed my strategy pretty well, kind of with going the RB heavy approach, kind of getting, I got one elite guy who I see in Bryce Young, and then kind of just some back end quarterbacks, and then the mid tier tight ends, and then now I'm just kind of backfilling decent value with some tight ends, some RBs like Keontae Ingram, and the wide receivers like Devontae Parker and Dontavian Wicks, which is pretty gross. It's my third round. But it is pretty shaky down here in the 23rd, 24th round.
Well, I mean, yeah, we expect. Somehow we still have like 9 rounds to go. So I will say, I definitely think running back is the strength of your team, and I think quarterback is probably the biggest weakness.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, right? Because that's usually the complete inverse of how I play, and I feel like how you play too for the most part in the lineup league.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's kind of like, like I said, the inverse of what you usually do.
Yeah, I think ultimately I think since I got stuck at the 12 spot, I kind of just went in. I went into the draft with a strategy that I was kind of going to zag ultimately and kind of draft a little bit differently from other people, especially since a lot of the other guys are going heavy quarterback. So then I made up for that where I feel like I have the best running back room, where some of these guys, if you go through, like the guy who took 6 quarterbacks, his running back room is Rashad White and then Chase Brown and Jerome Ford. Like, that looks super disgusting. So I guess I try to make up for my quarterback room being pretty poor by getting a pretty strong RB room.
Yeah. I mean, wait, go back to Team 2 doesn't even have any quarterbacks, do they, through like the first?
Oh, wow. He has Dorian Thompson. I didn't even see that. What?
Yeah. As we said, we are still going through this draft, so things are, wow, that's a bold strategy, okay.
Wow. Like this guy, he took his first running back in the 10th round, Brian Robinson, Tajay Spears. So I guess ultimately, to my point, I tried to kind of hit where I could since I was later in the draft, and I knew drafting at the early 2nd, and then I had the early 3rd round because of the 3rd round reversal. I tried to hit the heavy RBs. And actually, I was really happy to get Stevenson and Pollard here in the 4th and 5th round. I feel like those are pretty good values.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I was going to say one last thing for your team. I feel like you might run into trouble because the people in this community tend to, like, for the most part, play similarly to how we usually do, which is where they value the quarterbacks and probably the tight ends in this scoring, and they devalue the running backs. So I feel like you could run into problems if your guys don't smash this year. I mean, because if they do, obviously, right, then you're probably well on your way to being a playoff team, hopefully. But if they don't, you might be kind of stuck because then you can't really trade them for good value because people don't value running backs in this league. And then if they're not producing for you anyway, it's not really helping you, compete. So I can see that being a potential obstacle for you, but obviously we'll have to see how the season goes. For me, I'd say my team is maybe a little bit more balanced than it usually is. Like, usually I kind of go heavy with the quarterbacks and the tight ends if it's 2.0 tight end scoring, and I fade the running backs and the wide receivers a little bit more, whereas I think this time I'm a little bit more balanced than I tend to be. Again, unfortunately right now my team kind of just feels like a middle of the pack team. I do think I am one of the few teams with a quarterback advantage. I think there's maybe like 3 teams, including myself, that are in a tier like that. Obviously M Cup, the dude who got Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen, is in that tier. And then the dude at the 101 who like did the QB horde, I don't even know if because like his second QB is Kirk Cousins. I feel like I'd rather have Herbert and Watson over Mahomes and Cousins, but anyway, I digress. So yeah, my team feels kind of weird. Again, still kind of getting used to the whole best ball thing. It feels like kind of a middle of the road team, but I'm glad I've got the quarterbacks pretty secure, and I'm glad I've got a spare 24 first to play with. So I've got obviously 2 2024 firsts. I feel like in this draft I took more shots on guys I believe in as opposed to just trying to like tear down. I think that's because I had to, because the guys in this league are, I mean, I don't want to like diss anyone else from other leagues, but I think the people in this league were probably a little bit sharper, probably have a little bit more dynasty and specifically best ball experience than, maybe some of the other leagues we've been in comparatively of the dynasty experience that guys have. But so I kind of had to take more shots on just guys I believe in as opposed to tearing down and getting value in extra 24 first. So, Treylon Burks is someone I like. Zay Flowers, I'm not huge into him, but I don't have any shares of him, so I kind of wanted to get a share of him because he is still a first-round wide receiver, and kind of go about it that way. But I'll kind of leave it at that. It was definitely a lot of fun. Obviously, this draft is not over yet, so we'll kind of see how things shake out, and it'll be interesting to follow along throughout the season. But it's fun doing the draft. It was fun doing the mock draft tonight. And I think that's probably all we got for you guys tonight. I mean, we're about 70 minutes into this thing. One day we'll be under an hour.
As usual.
One day we'll be
One
under an
day,
hour.
we promise.
But, you know, I mean, feel free to chime in, you guys in the comments. Let us know what you think, both about the actual draft and the mock draft. Give us your thoughts. Again, things you would have done differently, things you agree with, disagree with. And just, you know, feel free to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and let us know your feedback on the video, but also on our channel and, you know, the content we're producing for you guys. If you guys like this stuff, if you want to see something different, we're very open to feedback. So I think that's all I got, man. How about you?
Yeah. This was awesome. I love this. I think this was a blast, and hopefully you guys enjoyed watching it, because the last startup video that we did was killing it. You guys are loving the video apparently with all the views it's gotten recently.
That was our most popular video, yeah. So apparently people are into the startup strategy. So, you know, this time's a little bit different with the whole best ball approach. So hopefully you guys like it. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, you know, whatever you want to do. We appreciate it very much. And we will see you guys next time.
See you guys.
Bye. Peace.